Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello everybody, how you doing? Tonight, I'm here talking about Michael Funk again. Basically, this is just me giving some, having a frank kind of one-ended conversation with Arron Olson, the Neenah police chief. All right? The police chief over at Neenah PD. I've just read the article in the Post-Crescent regarding the new movie that's coming out, the new docudrama that's coming out, the $50 million Bullet. And those of you who follow my channel, you know that I interviewed the actor, Dan Davies, who you guys will have been able to see on Linda Kay's channel right before this. She had him on her channel live. Dan Davies, the actor that will be playing Michael Funk. And I've also had David Starr, the executive producer of the $50 million Bullet. Also, I had him on and had a discussion with him. The article even mentions that fact when they're talking to Arron Olson. And he says that he watched an hour-long interview with David Starr, and goes on to quote David and dispute what David said, a little, sort of, and he's clearly saying it's all untrue, 100% untrue. He's throwing terms like that around. Now, let me just say, I actually have a fair amount of sympathy for Arron Olson. I have. I mean, it's a messed up position for him to be in, because he wasn't chief when this all went down. He's only been chief for about 1.5 years. This all went down in 2015. Okay? And so, this is an unpleasant prospect for him. So I can have a little bit of a sympathy for the guy, because it wasn't on his watch. But this is going to be uncomfortable for his department. This movie being made. And so, yes, I do have a measure of sympathy for Mr. Olson, for Officer Olson, Chief Olson, right? But I also have a tremendous amount of sympathy for the man and his loved ones and people that cared about him who was shot down. Whether we go it's accidental or not, it's still a concrete fact. A concrete fact that Michael Funk was shot down by Officer Hoffer, whether justified or otherwise. It happened. And he was a hostage, not the hostage taker. Okay? That alone is kind of, whether you are found to be responsible or not, I feel it gives the city of Neenah at least some obligation to the loved ones of that hostage who was killed. Wouldn't you think? I mean, their friend just got killed. And everybody wants to just say, oh, how it was a mistake, and they want to start telling lies right away, which is something that Kay Reitz points out in the article, where they were all immediately all getting on the news in the media. Remember what we were talking about last night on my channel about Ken Kratz, when they started talking about the media in Wisconsin, right? So the media, they all get on the media, and they're all talking about how Hoffer said, drop the gun. That's a fallacy, folks. That's a pipe dream. It was never said. They got on, they wanted the community all to believe that had been said. And so they got on the news and made sure that's what people believed, but that is not what happened. Now, is Chief Olson right when he says that the courts have already decided on this and, and all that sort of stuff. Well, no, I don't dispute with you that the courts have decided on this. I have a friend of the channel who is very, very keen to continually point that out to me, even though I still have an interest in this case. But I have a friend who is very keen to continue to point that out to me as well. And it's fine. I account for it. I respect the courts. I gotta say, my view of them has been shaken in recent years, but I still believe the courts are important, that the law is important, and that there's a reason why we have laws, and that there's a reason why we're supposed to obey the laws, and because I believe in that sort of thing, that's what I'm about. It's what's unconscionable to me, what I have a problem with, and it's just like David Starr said. David Starr said, he's not anti-cop, neither am I. I'm definitely not. I have sympathy for cops and how rough their job is. I have a tremendous sympathy for that. But you got to understand, I've been looking around in Wisconsin for the last 3 years, and I've been seeing things like Wiegert and Fassbender, committing child abuse, in essence, coercing a young Brendan Dassey just because they were so hell-bent to get his uncle. And the only reason they had to go after Brendan is because they were looking at the case, the evidence in the case, and they knew that a good lawyer was going to be able to ask the right questions. Why is the key found on the 8th search by two deputies who were already involved in a conflict of interest, and it only has Stephen or the defendant's DNA on it, not the person whose key it was, right? And so they knew things like that. That's just one item, right? Things like that they knew a good defense attorney would be able to come in there and pretty much blow their case out of the water, in a lot of ways on that evidence. So getting Brendan to confess and doing their press conference, that solidified it. So that's what you guys essentially did. You got on the news and told a lie that he was warned to drop the gun. Trust me, had he been warned, my money is on Michael Funk drops that gun immediately into the dirt. My money's on that is what would have happened had Hoffer actually given that warning he said he gave. But he didn't give it. It's complete bull. And so you guys got in the media and perpetuated a lie, and now you want to call other people liars? Round and round and round it goes. That's why the rules are so important, Mr. Olson. That's why the rules are so important. Because when you stay within the rules and you do the things you're supposed to do, it's a lot more difficult to call your actions into question. But when you get a department of people who are getting in the media, or you're getting enough people in the media talking about this case and talking about how he was warned to drop the gun when that never happened, that is, you're no better than what you're accusing the filmmaker of here. Now, obviously, I take into account, Mr. Olson, or Chief Olson, that you only became the chief in the last year and a half, and that this didn't happen on your watch. Granted. And it's unfortunate for you that this is going to happen on your watch. So how do you want to be remembered? Because there's a white hot spotlight on Wisconsin right now. I don't know if you knew that. There's a white hot spotlight. The world, people all over the world are very interested in what's happening in your little state. Particularly the little area where Neenah is. Because it's about an hour west of a little area that a lot of people are interested in. I really do have a great deal of sympathy for you and your department in terms of there are probably a great many officers there who were not even around when this happened or were in no way involved, even if they were there at the time. Similar to you, I understand you actually became an officer there at Neenah PD 5 days before the Michael Funk incident happened. But obviously there's going to be a lot of people at the department that weren't involved and that are actually good cops that are coming to work every day looking to do their job the best they can without being hurt or injured, and without having to hurt or injure somebody else and then make it home for, Jimmy's baseball game or, little Laura's little dance recital or ballet or whatever it might be. Real lives. And they just want to go home and do that sort of stuff after their shift and all that. And I believe that. Not most cops, that's most cops. But something in Wisconsin is kind of odd. But there's something kind of odd how things happen there sometimes. The thing is, Hoffer may have been excused, or they, in the courts. Like, they may have said it was reasonable that he shot Michael Funk. But the thing is that Michael Funk was wearing ENC attire, and it was made very clear to the 911 operators from the word go that the hostages were all wearing something that had Eagle Nation cycles or ENC on it somewhere. And we also know that Hoffer had a great deal of consistent contact with Michael Funk. In fact, there's a video of Michael Funk on the phone telling somebody that there's an officer there, and he leans in. As he's on the phone, he leans in and goes, "Oh, it's a Hoffer." So we know that 3 months prior, Hoffer was in ENC talking to Michael Funk. It's just hard to believe that he didn't recognize Michael Funk, and then he tried to lie and say that he warned him. Right? That's, it just doesn't wash, Chief Olson. Now, as the courts may be fine with it, but what will people think? What will people think? Like, nobody wants to think that if they're ever in a hostage situation that they're going to get trampled by the cavalry, if they manage to escape. I mean, it's a scary thought. Some of the other issues I have is the Hasty team. I don't know if you've gone back and watched these video clips, Chief Olson, but if you watch the body cam footage of the Hasty team entering, they're going in, they bungle, 2 guys are falling down the stairs, shots are going off. It's hard to tell what's really happening, but in the end, Fladoff hits nobody, except somehow, they're saying, he manages to hit Hoffer's helmet, who's like the 3rd guy back, right? Manages to hit Hoffer's helmet, and it's just a glancing blow. Now, you gotta understand, Fladoff is across the room. That bullet's gonna come at a pretty much a direct angle, a perpendicular angle to that helmet. I don't know. It's very interesting because the helmet disappeared quickly, and apparently so did the rifle that was dropped over the edge of the little wall that borders the stairway that goes downstairs. One of the officers had dropped their weapon and was laying on the ground on the other side of that wall. That weapon and the helmet were disappeared fast when they should have been made evidence. Because the other part of this, the other thing is as they're exiting, what they're saying. They're saying, "Oh, they're all shooters." It's suddenly there's not a hostage situation. Suddenly it's they're all shooters. That's what these guys are saying. That's not true. And I can even show, because I've done a video before where I actually show the internal cameras at Eagle Nation Cycles when it shows the Hasty team coming in the back door, and it shows what the hostages are doing, which is very different from what Flat Off is doing. So, why, again, is there a misrepresentation of what's happening? Because they're saying they're all shooters. Michael Funk goes to his belly. You can't see Michael Peterson, but he's like right underneath the camera, so he's out of its range of view. But I've spoken to him. I've been to Eagle Nation Cycles, and he explains how there used to be a bike that was basically right underneath that camera, and that he just dove behind that bike. People are diving for the floor and being interpreted as shooters. Ducking for cover makes you a shooter. You see the disingenuous kind of, assessment of these officers? It's just odd to me. This is why I've stayed interested in this case, even though my good friend likes to remind me that the courts have deemed it's okay. So, now we're going to see what the public thinks of the situation. I would advise you to talk with David Starr. Insert your truth. Right? I mean, that would be the most practical thing to do, right? You're saying that what he proposed is all lies. Well, why don't you insert the truth as you see it and back it up? Or you can clam up like Manitowoc and Calumet. That's what they did, and they're still doing. And how's that working out for them? They recently had to make a public statement that they gave a grieving family animal bones in order to try and avoid a constitutional violation. That happened. That's what clamming up has done for them. That's just, for what it's worth. The other thing in this is Hoffer himself. Okay. This guy was hit in the helmet. I have some possible different ideas about where that bullet might have come from, but skipping past that, the fact is he was hit in the helmet. And that happened, and that's a fact. So, should an officer who's been hit by a bullet, I can't believe he got cleared by anybody. I believe most likely that he probably wasn't cleared, but that he just walked out of that medical tent and nobody stopped him. Just like before he goes and shoots Michael Funk, he has a superior officer who, I can't remember her name at the moment, a superior officer who tells him twice to stay out of the situation, but he ignores her. So is that most likely what went down in the medical tent? Because that's the way Hoffer comes off in the videos, because he's sitting there telling, when he's at first telling his superior officer, I forget his name at the moment too, so pardon me, but when he's first talking with his superior officer, and his superior officer's like, wait, what are you doing here? You were hit. You shouldn't be here. He's like, no, medical cleared me, or whatever Hoffer says, and he's like all, happy. And he just killed somebody. He's all happy. Like, no, they cleared me. Right now I'm fine. It was just a little bump, or whatever. And then he shows the bump to his superior officer, and his superior officer's like, whoa! Like he's like, shocked by it, which for a seasoned veteran like him, what's an animated response? You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. This seasoned, veteran has this really, shocked response when he sees that bump. Okay? Then we have Hoffer talking about the fact that he just shot somebody and he's about ready to dance a jig and all that. But then if you watch that body cam video further to the end, you start to see this part at the end where the last 3 to 5 minutes of it is listening to Hoffer walk back and forth in front of the body cam as he's running around looking through first aid kits and ranting about the need for an ice pack and how none of them work. To say that he wasn't injured, to say that it's not likely that injury could have contributed to this tragedy, even if it was all innocent, as you would say, then why were the hostages treated so shabbily? These are the victims of a crime. They were ignored, and when they had questions, they were put off and, just ignored for the most part. That's what was happening. These are the hostages. These are the victims of crime. Okay? Now, it happens that an agent of the Neenah PD shot a friend of theirs. So here's another question. Why was nothing done to help the hostages and the people that were involved in that situation and everything with some of their, some of the psychological and or emotional, issues or difficulties that they may have developed because of that situation? How did Neenah help to ease that? We're talking about victims of crime here. Yeah, I know your hasty team says they're all shooters. Your hasty team is full of poo-poo. Okay? So what did Neenah do? Anything? Did they get maybe some therapists to work with them? Did they offer? Was there anything? Or did Neenah just forget about the hostages and start handing out medals to all the police officers and the people involved that shot a hostage? See what you have a problem with, Mr. Olson, Chief Olson, is that the facts as they are not flattering. And you know that that's going to come to light. That's what you're really not. That's what you really don't like. All I can say, man, didn't happen on your watch. So let it be on the previous chief who was involved with that mess. The fact that you were giving out, spending all kinds of taxpayers' money to hand out a bunch of medals in a situation that was a complete failure. I don't know what to say. You think it's a joke or something when somebody tells you. When the first time somebody told me this, I was like, "You're joking." They didn't give these guys awards for this performance, did they? Yeah. Well, that's it for my message to you, Chief. There's a lot wrong here. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, I don't think an officer who has been hit by, like Hoffer was, should be allowed to get back involved. I think that is absolutely the fact that he was able to, and the fact that nobody cared that or thought that maybe that injury could have affected his judgment. Nobody seemed to put that together is scary. So maybe it actually has to be law on the books. And there I come back to that again, Chief. Law and order. You understand, you obviously enforce the law for the public at large there in Neenah, right? But you're also bound by the law to do your job in a way that's constitutional, ethical, any number of other things. Okay? So, there's rules that people follow. And so maybe that's what's needed here, to prevent another compromised officer from being involved in another hostage shooting like this, and having the city go out and spend a bunch of money on rewarding these situations. Maybe we just need some SOP set up where the moment an officer is hit, I don't care if he stubs his toe at this point. I'm willing to go that far overboard. If an officer even stubs their toe, then they have to remove themselves from the situation. That's the way I feel about it. But certainly if they've been hit by a bullet. Without a doubt, if they've been hit by a bullet, they should be removed. But, so, that's basically how I feel about this. Hope everybody out there enjoyed this. Remember, November 18th, folks, if you're interested in being in the $50 million bullet, go out to Eagle Nation Cycles on November 18th. There is, I think, a couple roles still open, so maybe you can get a role, but there will also be plenty of opportunity for extras. So if you want to just end up being some of the background, some of the extras in the background and stuff when they're recreating the docudrama and stuff, they apparently need a great deal of those. So if you guys are in the area, you're interested, you have that passion for Michael Funk and Eagle Nation Cycles, you can be an extra next summer if you want. So go down there November 18th. Okay, it's November 1st right now. So in 17 days, head on down to Eagle Nation Cycles if you're in the area, and possibly can get signed on as an extra. And there is even, I think, still a couple roles open that you might be able to fill if those of you out there who are thespians. So head on down there. Linda Kay will be there with her friend Wanda. We'll be having a good time, and talking about the upcoming film, and talk about the press conference there at Eagle Nation on the 18th. And so we'll do a little bit of fun stuff here on the channel. So that's where we're at. If you listened all the way to the end, Chief, I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. It is appreciated. As I said, I do have some sympathy for you. I have a measure of sympathy for you. It's just that I have a whole heck of a lot more for the people of Eagle Nation who were basically left raw. And in a lot of ways, especially with the rewards, the medals that were given out, it was like they were just continually having salt rubbed in the wounds. And so it's been bad for them. It's been really bad for them. I don't know that will mean anything to you, but they have been suffering for a long time. And they've been feeling very slighted and ignored. And those hostages, they deserved better treatment. Because they were victims of crime. Your Wisconsin has a crime victims rights board. It's not important how I know that, but aren't the rights of crime victims important? Why did Neenah not make any attempt to help with what was obviously a painful experience for these hostages? To lose their friend like that. Anyways, that's really what it comes down to. It's nothing personal, It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. It's somebody like Hoffer should not be allowed to remain in the game after he's been hit. I just think it's a recipe for disaster, and I think there should be rules set up to prevent it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys.